Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Creating a Healthy, Flexible Space in a Time of Change webinar. Today, we have Jeremiah to chat about this topic with us. Thank you so much for being here today. Before we start, I just have some general housekeeping rules. Please ensure your mic is muted throughout the presentation. This will just help cause less disruptions and distractions to Jeremiah. If you have a question for Jeremiah, please write it in the questions box or use the raise your hand feature. All questions will be answered at the end of the presentation during our Q&A period, but feel free to get them in early. With that, I'm going to pass it off to Jeremiah to get things going.
All right, well, thank you so much, and good morning, everyone. As you heard, my name's Jeremiah. I'm a counseling therapist, and I'm also a therapist that does EAP work for CG Hilton, who has been sponsoring today's webinar and asked if I'd be able to do a presentation for the BILD Calgary region. So it's a real honor and pleasure to be here today. I've got quite the loaded title here. It's called Creating Healthy, Flexible Space in a Time of Constant Change. Wow, that's a mouthful, all right? And I think it's really important with everything going on today, and especially just with everything going on specifically within, well, we'll say these next 25 days until we find out, you know, newer reports and stuff like that from the Alberta Health Services and government of Alberta, and also federally within Canada. There's a lot of change that's been happening. If anything, if 9 months or almost coming up now to 10 months since the beginning of the pandemic or COVID-19, however you're choosing to phrase it, we have definitely had to learn or are working or struggling towards this thing called constant change. Oh my gosh. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So my agenda is just, and I'm just going to read the sentence here, is how to deal with the constant and oftentimes stressful circumstances of change, okay, and what to do about it in order to have a healthy, mentally and emotionally healthy home and work-life balance. So I'm going to be talking a lot about, of course, if you're working, whether you're in office, whether you're working at home, or you're having to combine that, working in home, at home, or maybe you're just viewing today and just a guest with BILD Calgary. Either way, we're going to be talking a little bit about both areas just to be able to support you in whatever you might be going through right now in your home circumstance. Of course, this is such a huge topic, so I'll be trying to narrow it down a little bit, but at the end of the day, definitely if you have any questions that are unrelated or somewhat related to what we're talking about today, I want to definitely encourage you to think about those questions and ask. This is a chance for you to pull out the best stuff from me today. So I really want to encourage you to do that at the end of our session. Hopefully for about 20 to 30 minutes presentation. That of course depends on how much this guy keeps going. And other than that, we will then open it up and definitely draw upon what maybe you're needing, or if you have other loved or family members that you're concerned about, to be able to do that as well. Okay. So part of the agenda as well is I'm going to be talking a lot of this kind of, I'm going to be referencing a lot of different people. You know, this is not just me who comes up with this stuff. It's just so many great stuff and material out there today that's available. This just comes from some of the concepts of the Simon Sinek book, Start With Why. If you're not familiar who Simon Sinek is, definitely encourage you afterwards, write that name down. Simon Sinek, go on YouTube and type in Start With Why and watch his watch one of his more widely watched TED Talk videos. But we're going to talk about the why. Okay, why are we talking about this topic? Why do we need flexible space? Okay. And then we're going to talk more about the what. What are we talking about? Well, I'm going to talk about a concept today called the power of pi. Okay. Out of that, we're going to talk about the how. The how do we create then flexible space, which is our main theme today, using pi. Okay. And then afterwards, of course, we'll have all the question and answer period and stuff like that. So we're going to start off here with a definition. All right. So what are we going to call flexible space? Okay. Well, what do you mean by that? Okay. Well, creating space is a healthy way of dealing with life's sudden changes, which can include, as we see here on the list, crisis, grief, loss, trauma, anxiety, and depression. Okay. Here's the thing. Pandemic or no pandemic, it's not a matter of if, but when. Okay. A drastic life changing event can happen in anyone's life that just throws this curveball in your life and our pre planned personal agendas. Okay. Such as, again, you might have heard this word before, pandemic. Okay. So beyond just the pandemic, this talk could very easily be given at any time of the year, pre, mid, during, post COVID. Okay, so this is just one of those messages that's just a passion of mine, but especially with the events that have happened throughout the world and in our province and city, has just kind of developed into a bit of a message, I guess, that I'm very passionate about sharing. So by creating intentional space, and here's the key word, it's intentional. You're going to hear me say that a lot probably as well, that intentional, having to make that choice to be intentional, the choosing to be intentional about creating space. We can then walk, all right, in new life without feeling stuck, okay, or being afraid to handle the unknown. So if you're watching today and you have been feeling very stuck in your circumstances, whatever they might be within home or work or both, or if you're just dealing with some of that fear of the unknown, I don't know what's around the corner. That's great. I mean, yesterday and today, of course, the big, hey, we got the vaccinations happening, but depending on how much or what you're following of the news, for the average population group, we're talking 6 months to a year from now, depending on whether a person's going to be able to get a vaccination or not. And that's if you're even wanting to get a vaccination or not. I'm not going to get into the political topics of that, but those are just things for consideration. But it still creates an unknown, which definitely is never a fun thing to deal with. And too much of that can get stuck. Okay, so why do we or I or you need flexible space? Okay, well, the answer is that when dealing with grief and loss, okay, or things like a global pandemic, in my opinion, they're just fancy ways of saying trauma, whether it's a little trauma or a bunch of little traumas, or maybe a big trauma, or maybe all the little traumas make this giant trauma within our individual lives. Okay. We need to create intentional space to develop a daily routine, which, out of creating a daily healthy routine, will support creating normalcy within our lives. Okay, so, of course, all the big talk with, you know, uh, new norm and all that kind of stuff. That might be some stuff afterwards we can talk about if you're interested in that. But, what is normal anymore? What is the new norm going to be? What is the next normal going to be? But at the end of the day, what I'm hoping to inspire and have you to be intentionally working on your life is to be able to create normalcy beginning right now in your life. Okay. So without normalcy and routine, here's the key: we lose our freedom of control, okay, which we are wired to have. Okay, so without normalcy and routine, we lose our freedom of control. Well, if anything has happened within this pandemic, is normalcy and routine has gone out the window. I don't know about you, but even in my practice, I'm just taking it one day, 1 week at a time. It's definitely been interesting observing kind of the world around and those who come visit me for clients. But at the end of the day, if it's one theme that I've seen, it's the normalcy and routine that's out the window, whether you're going into work to an empty office, when you're going home, if your kids are in school, maybe some are still in school, maybe some are doing online school. Either way, those are all things that have broken normalcy and routine out of our lives. Okay. And that's a loss of freedom of control that we're going to talk about a little bit more of here. So, not having flexible space can very rapidly lead, okay, to unhealthy living and what I like to call unhealthy coping skills or strategies, leading to various addictions, depression, anxiety, domestic violence. We've definitely heard a lot of increase of domestic violence. Two partners who don't get along or maybe they've been struggling a little bit, but now everything's compressed. Everything's compressed with COVID, so now I'm stuck constantly 24 hours a day with my partner, with my kids, and that's creating a lot of tension. Okay. And sometimes, again, as I said before, it's just plain feeling stuck in life. I'm stuck. I'm stuck at home. I'm stuck in an empty office. I'm just stuck. I'm stuck in traffic. Well, maybe not the last 2 days since the restrictions. Traffic's definitely not. It's definitely less. I know during the first 2-3 months of the pandemic, when I was driving, that was incredible. I felt like I was back in the 80s, not like I was driving in the 80s, but I won't give my age away quite yet. That being said, just a lot of stuckness in people's lives. Okay. And we want to get out of that stuckness feeling. Okay. So I have a question